At some point, all cities were filled with hope and promise. That point is normally around its founding. Then at some other point, they got a bad reputation, and that's what we're talking about today. There are a lot of different reasons a city gets a bad reputation. Crime, poverty, pollution, crumbling infrastructure, or homeless camps that pop up on sidewalks like here in Portland, Oregon. There are 100 of those scenarios and hundreds of reasons for each one that happens. Jobs leave a city, housing gets too expensive, shrinking tax base, and someone legalizes every substance that you can inhale, inject, drink, or snort. Whatever the reason, cities get to the point where it becomes known for one of their shortcomings and a bad reputation is created. Today we look at 10 cities with bad reputations. Got it? Get it? Good. Let's take a look. Number 10, Portland and San Francisco. Portland and San Francisco share the same fate. Out-of-control housing costs have led to an increase in homelessness and open-air drug use. And before you do, stop typing. Housing costs aren't the only or the main reason for homelessness. We all know that it's mental health and addiction issues. We don't need to go over that again. But out-of-control housing costs do present another layer to the homeless situation. The addiction and the mental health problems have always been there, and they've put in a certain amount of people on the streets. The new portion of the situation is out-of-control rent and home prices. Now, both Portland and San Francisco have had their moment in the sun as a shining example of America at its best. If you had two nickels to rub together in the mid-1800s, you were heading to California and probably San Francisco trying to get in on that gold. This continued on to the 1960s when the hippie movement was there, and then on to the Silicon Valley days. There's always been a serious allure to San Francisco until recent years. The housing costs, the homelessness, the cost of living in general, and crime and everything that goes with that stuff has basically destroyed San Francisco. Portland's had a couple bursts in its existence where people have been moving to. The latest one started sometime around the 1990s, and it continued till I would say about 2016, with little peaks and valleys through that whole thing. Portland has gained double digits in population since the 1990 census. Since 2020, so from 2020 to 2024, Portland has lost almost 6% of its population. And it's because of its reputation, just like San Francisco. They have a reputation for the homelessness and all the other problems, and then, they made the wise move of legalizing just about everything. This reputation has played a big part in the downfall of Portland. Businesses are leaving, new businesses don't want to come into Portland. More and more people that actually love the city of Portland have decided to move elsewhere. I love Portland. Portland's a great city. It's just got far too many problems right now. I don't recommend it to anyone anymore, even though I love this city. It's almost like having a loved one that's going through some really hard times. You love them and you hope for the best, but if anyone's going to loan them money, you tell them not to. That being said, both Portland and San Francisco are seeing a little improvement when it comes to their homeless situation. Both cities' homeless population peaked in 2019. Portland had about 8,000 people living on the streets, and San Francisco had about 8,500. In late 2023, it's estimated that Portland had about 7,500, and San Francisco had 7,800. That obviously is still far too many homeless people for any city. Both Portland and San Francisco get their bad reputation from drugs and homelessness. Before we go on, we gotta pay our bills and thank today's sponsor, Storyblocks. If you've been watching this channel long enough, you know I ran out of my own travel footage years ago. I have needed stock footage in many cases. That is where today's sponsor comes in, Storyblocks. Storyblocks offers unlimited downloads of diverse and high-quality media for one predictable subscription cost. Say goodbye to expensive pay-per-clip pricing. Yes, some sites actually charge you per clip, and that adds up quickly. The Storyblocks stock library has everything you need to create high-quality videos, all in one place. Over 1 million things to use: 4K, HD footage, templates, music, sound effects, images, and more. If you've ever done graphics, you know it takes forever. You can save hours with pre-made motion graphic templates. Choose from thousands of pre-made professional video templates for your favorite editing programs. They got everything: After Effects, DaVinci Resolve, Apple Motion, Premiere Pro. It's all there. This will just help speed up your workflow. DaVinci Resolve templates are now available. They've got everything, motion graphics and animated sequences. Storyblocks is already the best motion library on the market, with new footage added frequently with commissioned content based on customer demand. To get started with unlimited stock media downloads at one set price, head to storyblocks.com and use the link in the description area below. Thanks to Storyblocks for sponsoring this video. Download unlimited stock media at one set price with Storyblocks. Number 9, Anchorage, Alaska. Now, this is kind of strange because not a lot of people know much about Anchorage. What you do hear of Anchorage, it's not good. Anchorage might not seem like a dangerous place, but it really is. If you look at their property crime, it's 41% above the national average. That's not terrible, but it ain't great. Their violent crime rate is 211% above the national average. Is that the worst in the country? No, but it's up there. There's a lot of reasons Anchorage is a very dangerous place. Obviously, the drug use. Drug use is a big part of the Anchorage experience, so to speak. With drugs comes violence. Now, there's another thing, and a few people have talked about this. I've read a couple things on it. A lot of people will leave the lower 48 to Alaska, and Anchorage in particular, to get away from problems they've had in the past in the lower states. Well, they start doing the same garbage in Anchorage. So they're actually bringing a bad element. Of course, you have extreme alcohol abuse in Alaska, period, and Anchorage is no different. Anchorage gets its bad reputation from substance abuse and violent crime. Number 8, Springfield, Massachusetts. If you don't know Springfield, Massachusetts has a bad reputation, you probably are from the western United States. If you're on the eastern seaboard or any place in New England, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, you know Springfield sucks. If you're looking for it on a map, it is west of Boston and north of Hartford, Connecticut, which is no gem itself. Springfield, Massachusetts and Hartford, Connecticut share about the same amount of suckage. Springfield's the type of place you visit when you're looking to engage in some criminal activity. They've got enough to go around. Where they really shine is their poverty. The Census Bureau reports that the poverty level in Springfield, Massachusetts is 26.7%. Over 1/4 of the residents live below the poverty line in Springfield, Massachusetts. Just for context, the poverty rate in Massachusetts overall is 11.4. The national average is 15.1%. At the same time, Springfield, Massachusetts was 26.7%. And when you look at the crime stats year over year, the numbers aren't moving in the right direction. Springfield is getting more dangerous for you and your stuff. A lot of property crime goes on here now. Their reputation comes from just having a lot of idiots, really. A lot of crime, a lot of poverty. Their infrastructure is horrible. If you want to make some money in Springfield, Massachusetts, open up a business that boards up windows. Number 7, Baltimore. Baltimore is a strange city. There's some hope on the horizon because they're growing kind of a tech scene, but it's not growing fast enough. Baltimore's actually been losing population since the 1960s. They had never had a down census till the 1960 census, and they've been losing ever since. A majority of those losses, though, haven't moved out of state. They've moved into the suburbs around Baltimore. I'll be in Baltimore in August. Baltimore is a great city to live in if you are a street pharmacist or a hired gun, I imagine. Baltimore always shows up as one of the most violent cities in the United States. Their violent crime rate is frickin' ridiculous, 320% above the national average. Their property crime is 68% above the national average. There's one reason that it's so low, their property crime. It's because nobody has anything worth stealing. One of the other major problems for Baltimore is urban decay. They've got a lot of rundown buildings and a lot of areas that nobody really has any business going to, not even the residents. And that's how Baltimore got a bad reputation. Number 1, it's the violent crime, the gangs, all that stuff. After that, it's the urban decay. Number 6, Rockford, Illinois. If you compare dangerous Illinois cities to animals, Chicago is like a lion with a sour disposition, and Rockford, Illinois is like a honey badger with hemorrhoids and a toothache. Rockford has had a struggling economy for decades. Record unemployment almost year after year. In 2019, they had the highest rate in the state. And then there's the violent crime. They've got a lot of it. They got a lot to go around. If you're looking to be assaulted in some way, shape, or form, this is a good place to start your search. There's some sects of the Catholic religion back in the day that believed the more you suffered, the more God favored you. If you're on that quest, Rockford, Illinois is a good place to get in God's good graces. You might become a saint. You're talking about a city where 25% of the population lives below the poverty line. That's a full 10 points higher than the national average. After that, you got to look at their schools. They really don't have the best schools. They don't get good marks. And their education attainment kind of sucks. And I think this is why they have such a high unemployment rate. If you don't have an educated workforce, a lot of companies won't come to your city and they won't set up shop around you. The percentage of the residents that have high school diplomas is 7% lower than the national average. Bachelor degrees, it's 29% lower than the national average. The only thing that is positive about Rockford, Illinois is the cost of living. It's dirt cheap. And that includes housing. Housing's dirt cheap. Rockford, Illinois gets its bad reputation from poverty and violent crime. The lack of jobs is also a big driver for their bad reputation. Number 5, Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey has been the poster child for rundown, dangerous cities for quite some time. It's like the worst city in the area, and they have Philadelphia right across the river. The best thing that could ever happen to Philadelphia is a couple bridge collapses that connect them to Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey used to be a major manufacturing hub, especially when it came to electronics back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and maybe even in the 80s a little bit. General Electric was there, RCA was there. Now, in 2019, their crime peaked. It's gone down a little bit since then. Their violent crime rate right now is 325% above the national average. That's brutal. In 2019, it was 409% above the national average. This is another situation where the property crime isn't that bad because nobody has anything worth stealing. Someone breaks in your house, the only thing worth stealing is your mattress you got at Goodwill, and it's a good one because it doesn't have any bloodstains. Camden, New Jersey's bad reputation comes from poverty, violent crime, and lack of jobs. Number 4, Memphis, Tennessee. Memphis, Tennessee has been the top of the violent crime heap for about 7 years now. They're always in a rival situation with Pine Bluff, Arkansas for the most violent southern cities. Sadly, this is a city with a lot of history and a lot of good people. It's just got horrible crime rates. There's still plenty to see if you ever do decide to go visit Memphis. The Memphis Zoo, Graceland, a Bass Pro Shop that's shaped like a pyramid. What's not to love about this city on the Mississippi River? If you ever do visit Memphis, my suggestion would be to stick to the touristy areas. They're a little bit safer than going into the neighborhoods. Memphis is a little bit different when it comes to their crime rate. Both their crime stats are really high. Their violent crime rate is 555% above the national average. Their property crime rate is 267% above the national average. Nothing is safe here. You, your stuff, your imaginary friend named Julio who makes you say inappropriate things at mass. This is another city that's got a problem with poverty. Again, 25% of the population here lives below the poverty line. Memphis has a whole bunch of problems, but their violent crime rate is such a problem that nobody else really knows about the other problems. Their bad reputation comes from violent crime. Number 3, Chicago. Chicago's the first one on this list that I don't think deserves as bad a reputation as it has, and I'm going to tell you where the bad reputation came from. Chicago is a very large city when it comes to population, and actually an area. It's a good-sized city if you count all the suburbs and everything else. The city itself has 2.7 million residents, with the entire metro area having 9.6 million residents. That's a lot of freaking people. Now, everyone thinks Chicago is the most dangerous city. It is not. It does have the most murders a lot of years, but since they have so many people, their crime rate or their violent crime rate is well below most of these big cities. As an example, Memphis, Tennessee has 633,000 residents. Their metro area has 1.3 million. Like I said, Chicago has 2.7 in the city and 9.6 in the metro area. Memphis had 269 murders in 2022. I use those numbers because the FBI doesn't release the new ones till September from the year before. So anyway, Memphis had 269 murders. Chicago had 604 murders. So that means there was about 22 murders for every 100,000 residents in Chicago. In Memphis, it was 43 murders for every 100,000 residents. Almost double. So yes, they do have the most murders, but the odds of you being killed are a lot lower in Chicago than a lot of other really bad cities. So where does the bad reputation come from all that? Well, it had to do with an election. All politicians want to find anything they can pin on their opponent. Doesn't matter what party you're from. Just so happens, Barack Obama was a senator from Illinois and from Chicago. So when he was running for the White House, they got to find anything they can to make him look bad. And like I said, every political party does this. Any competition, you're going to do this. If you're a boxer, you're going to find the person's weakness and attack that weakness. Well, if you're from a city that has the most murders in the country, you're going to bring that up during an election cycle as often as you can, ignoring the fact that their rate really isn't that high. It's using stats selectively. And I'm not ragging on any political party. I mean, this is the smart thing to do if you're running up against someone. So I get it. The only one that suffers from this really is the city of Chicago. They have this horrible reputation. And that reputation really took off when Barack Obama was running for the White House. Chicago has all the typical problems a big city will have. Gangs, drugs, poverty, all that stuff. But all anybody really thinks about is the violent crime and the murders in Chicago. And that's where they get the reputation from. Number 2, Oakland, California. Oakland, California is often overlooked when it comes to big cities, but it is a good-sized city. I think the fact that San Francisco's such bad shape these days, they kind of overlook Oakland. But Oakland is a bit of a nightmare. Since about the 1960s, crime in Oakland has been a problem, to the point where their overworked police force is a major problem. Now, what's a shame about this is Oakland is a beautiful city, sort of. I mean, it's got some rundown areas and stuff, but overall, it's a beautiful city. It's a waterfront city. You'd expect it to be in a little bit better shape. I mean, property values alone should make Oakland a better city to live in. There's a little bit of good news, though. Since 2019, the gun violence has gone down by 22%, which is great. Their violent crime rate's still 311% above the national average. Their property crime's pretty bad, too, 231% above the national average. And crime is where Oakland gets its bad reputation. I mean, there's other factors like it's got a really high cost of living and the housing is expensive. They got gang problems. All their major league teams have left the city. And they got Karens calling the police on people for having a barbecue in the park. That's one of my favorite Karen videos. This lady came up and started giving this family a hard time because they were having a barbecue by a little lake they have there in Oakland. It was just a little tiny barbecue they had. Well, she called the police and everything, and everyone around her started giving her a hard time. When the police finally got there, she played the victim and started crying. It's ridiculous. But yeah, Oakland gets its bad reputation from its violent crime and gangs. All right, before we get to number 1, we have another channel called On This Day. There's a link for that in the description area below. All right, on to number 1. And number 1, Detroit. Yes, everybody knows Detroit is a nightmare, and it has been for some time now. It started in the 1960s. Suckage really started picking up steam in the 1980s. And their reputation, hands down, just comes from poverty. I mean, the city has been a mess for a long time. They've lost almost 70% of their population from when it peaked in the 1950s. If you look at any neighborhood around the outside of downtown Detroit, you will find vacant lots everywhere. Look at this picture right here. All those vacant lots where it's nice and green, there once were homes there. And people just left them. They left the city, left everything behind, and abandoned their homes. And the city started mowing them down because people were setting them on fire for no reason. Homeless people were living in them. They were just causing more problems, so the city just started bulldozing some of these abandoned homes. For a while there, they were selling them for $1. Detroit at one point in its history was one of our greatest cities. It was the center of the universe when it came to American manufacturing, especially American automobile manufacturing. Now, there is hope for Detroit. They're in the middle of a little bit of a turnaround right now. The downtown is really nice. Their crime rate's going down, but they still carry that reputation. Their reputation is poverty, lack of jobs, and urban decay. All right, that's today's video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you got some information out of it. Now go out, have a great day, be nice to each other.